Well, we're just hours after a tragic event in Sacramento, California today, and it seems as if the usual talking heads are all at it trying to push their agenda. The news media is scrambling to get sound bites that are useful for them so they can profiteer off terrible events. And normally I kind of stay out of this kind of thing, but with how heavily it seems people are trying to push their specific agenda, I just felt I needed to get some information out there. So I woke up this morning learning about the news of what went on late this morning. And it's just pretty tragic to see. My favorite thing is how when every time there's an event like this, you get 24/7 news media coverage and you have all the vultures trying to get sound bites out of the victims or the parents of the victims. In this specific event, we see that Good Day, the CW31, had to get out there and press one of the fathers of someone who was killed and ask them how he's feeling, asking him for some thoughts, trying to get that sound bite, when they could have just left the man alone. Now, taking a look at what Gavin Newsom had to say, his office released a statement. Sadly, we once again mourn the lives lost and for those injured in yet another horrendous act of gun violence. Jennifer and I send our heartfelt condolences to the family, friends, and to the wider community impacted by this terrible tragedy. As it is early in this investigation, my administration will continue to work closely with local and state law enforcement as we monitor the situation. What we do know at this point is that another mass casualty shooting has occurred, leaving families and lost loved ones, multiple individuals injured, and a community in grief. The scourge of gun violence continues to be a crisis in our country, and we must resolve to bring an end to this carnage. His final statements were about gun violence and how they must solve the country's gun violence problems. Great. Great to see that that's the final point that you want to make in a situation like this. And then in Twitter, he further expanded onto that, saying with his last sentence, "We cannot continue to let gun violence be the new normal." Now, firearms policy had this to say about it. They quoted some information talking about how you're more likely to get hit by lightning strikes, and also, fuck you, no, gun control has failed, freedom is the future. Now, taking a look at that tweet that they said, I'm going to have this linked down below. Now, if you look at the data here that they have figured, mass shooting events, you're less likely to die by that than a lightning strike, than by an animal attack. And if you compare choking, yeah, just kind of putting it in context, violent crime is not as common as you may think it is. Violent crime and shootings in general are on a decline. Every time you see stats out there saying like, oh, 40,000 or 30-something thousand people were killed by a firearm this year, over 2/3, over 66% of those deaths are usually suicides. Then when you factor in what kind of people are doing the crimes, it's almost always gangs. So I can only imagine that at a nightclub at about 2 a.m., we were not seeing the kind of mass casualty event that we are typically referred to or typically are trained to think about when we think of mass shootings. It was most likely a gang violence situation, but we don't know that entirely just yet. Now, Giffords, enough is enough. Imagine living in a country where tragedies like this one in Sacramento don't happen. We will never stop fighting to make our communities safer and stop the senseless killing. Now, interestingly enough, if you actually look at what they rank California as a gun control advocacy, in the same way that the NRA ranks politicians, Giffords also ranks states. California has an A rating, meaning that this is the model state. California has every type of gun control imaginable, and some cities are even doing the unimaginable in the form of requiring you to pay fees to nonprofits so that it could counteract the cost of gun violence, requiring you to have insurance to prevent and to subsidize the cost of violence. Yet I'm not aware of any insurance company that would actually cover wrongful use of a firearm, meaning murder. I don't think there's murder insurance, but it seems like that's what they want. So in a state where we have every type of gun control, they think that we can do even more. Now, usually when events like this happen in other states, they say, oh, we need XYZ. Well, California already has XYZ. So what do? Well, they try to make this push nationwide, and that's honestly what we are going to see going forward. They're going to try to make these big pushes for everything that happens in California, all the craziness, all the insurance, all the fees, all the background checks, everything that you got to do, jumping through hoops, making a bolt-action Glock. They're going to try to push that nationwide. And it's honestly just kind of shameful to see how we can't even have an idea of what actually happened. We can't catch the shooter We have to immediately try to guilt the families into giving a talking point. We have to try to push more and more gun control when what gun control possibly could have stopped this? I can understand that people that want gun control, what they want, many of them want is they want safe. They want safety. They want less crime. Obviously, I think everybody wants that, right? The problem is they think that they can regulate guns out of existence. You cannot. You cannot stop the signal. You cannot get rid of the firearms in this nation. And for those of you saying that's not what they want, they don't want to get rid of the guns. Yes, they do. Gifford Center, I believe, or the Brady campaign, I believe, was initially called the Brady Campaign to End Handgun Ownership or something like that. Feinstein went on record saying that if she had the votes, she would have passed a law requiring every single American to turn in every single firearm they own. The goalpost is always moving. They do want to get rid of private gun ownership. That's why in states like California, they're constantly adding more fees, more cost to eventually price out the average citizen. And whenever they can, they're adding new people to be prohibited persons who are not violent, who are not a danger to themselves or others. And yet at the same time, we have activist district attorneys who are basically setting up catch and release systems. So where even when the police are allowed, able, and capable of doing their job and stopping a crime or catching a criminal, when they do those good things, the DA just lets them go on $0 bail, and then they're back out to do more and more crimes, like we see with the follow home robberies, where people are doing these kinds of violent crimes and then getting let out and then doing them again and getting caught the second time. We live in such a crazy state where criminals are treated so softly, criminals are let out when they shouldn't be, but then good, honest, hardworking people are punished for the actions of evil people and prevented from actually protecting themselves. Now, for those of you that don't know, Sacramento is actually a county where you can get a concealed carry weapons permit. And yet I saw on Twitter people saying, where was the good guy with the gun? See, there was no good guy with a gun. 2 a.m. at a nightclub? How many people are really going to be carrying at a place like that? And you also have to consider that even though Sacramento is a county where you can get a concealed carry permit, lately I hear the wait time is over a year. I had several people reach out to me in the last month or so saying, hey, I got my CCW in Sacramento, took a little bit over a year. I waited a little while because I knew it was going to take so long, and then it just made it wait even longer. So if you're interested in getting a concealed carry weapons permit, especially with a new sheriff potentially coming into play, and you live in Sacramento, I would highly recommend getting it now or starting the paperwork now, because you're going to be waiting a good long time to be able to legally protect yourself. That being said, you get to choose. Do you get caught with it or do you get caught without it? You guys know the drill. Have fun, be safe, stay dangerous. Peace.